It's a thrill to be here. Thank you, Randy.
So Powell, a longtime friend of mine, is a spectacular litigator. My go-to business litigator in the world of, bet the company deals. And anytime you have a very complicated issue, but today's episode is really more about getting inside the Powell Miller briefcase. And that's a subject matter. And metaphorically, it's not just a physical briefcase, but the briefcase of Powell Miller. So we're going to tackle a lot of different subjects today, from fulfillment to the daily grind and how he gets through it and motivates his troop, to his fascination and museum quality baseball collection. So there's obviously a lot to talk about. But Powell, kick it off. In today's world, there are a couple of things that are crippling people regarding this virus. Number one, it's fear. And secondly, the virus itself. So how are you coping with this every day in terms of really spearheading your practice of law and then getting your associates and partners to think the same way you do?
Well, I take my inspiration. You might see the painting on the screen behind me. That's an original Winston Churchill painting.
Oh, wow.
And my mom grew up in World War II as a schoolgirl, looking out the window and seeing dogfights between the Luftwaffe and the Royal Air Force. And so I've always been a huge Winston Churchill fan, and I always wanted one of his original paintings. So I was fortunate to win a case, and that's my trophy from the case. But I draw great inspiration from it, because Churchill believed you never give up. In the time of crisis, you're honest with your people, you're honest with your clients, you objectively state the situation you're in, but you're determined to win. Never give up. And that's what Churchill said. That's what I believe. Never give up. So the first thing I said to my staff and to my lawyers is, number one, nobody's getting laid off. Number two, nobody's getting a cut in pay. We're just going to fight our way through it. And we're going to get to the other side. And it won't be easy. We're all going to have to work really hard, probably harder than we've ever had to work, but we're not going to get hurt. We're going to survive and we're going to thrive. So, and if anybody's going to take a hit, it's going to be me. So that was the first message that I gave to everybody. Obviously, it's a horrible tragedy. I mean, I know people who have COVID-19. Thank God I don't know anybody who's passed from it. And it's horrible for the entire world. But I think we're going to come out stronger than ever before. I really do. I think we're going to be better at stopping infectious diseases. I think we're going to be healthier. I think we're going to be safer. Yes, lots of businesses are hurting now. Lots of businesses, people are hurting. But I'm very optimistic that the strong businesses are going to get even stronger. And in my profession, the best lawyers are going to do well, because there's always opportunity in every disaster. I've always believed that.
What are some of those, Powell, when we look at today's market? What does business look like 3 years from today?
I think 3 years from today, we're going to be stronger than the peak before the crisis. That's my prediction. I think that's enough time to have learned from it, overcome it, and gotten back on our feet, and more than back on our feet. So I'm a big fan of Warren Buffett. I think he's exactly right. In dark days, you forget about the green shoots, but the green shoots always come. And I believe the green shoots are going to come greener than ever before. And Randy knows green is my favorite color. So I'm very, very optimistic about the future. In our business, you see that in times like this, the type of litigation changes. When economic times are good, you get more grudge match litigation, because people can afford to bring grudge match cases. When you're in an economic crisis, it shifts more to contract disputes, commercial disputes. There's someone who's in distress, they can't pay, they look for ways around the contract. Other people who are owed money on the other side of the deal are looking for ways to enforce contracts. So I tend to see more commercial litigation, more shareholder litigation, more partnership fights, because there can be disputes about ways to raise money, how to deal with capital calls, what direction the business should go in. I wouldn't be surprised to see more law firm breakups. I hope not, but we're already starting to see some of those, and it's alarming, surprising to me a little bit, how quickly so many firms around the country just started cutting salary, laying people off. I mean, I'm really surprised at that, and I really think that the better thing to do is to kind of pause a little bit, be a little patient, don't assume the worst. Storms pass. This is a horrible storm, but it's going to pass.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, Powell, especially in the world of legal, I think a lot of people live beyond their means and, don't leave enough cash in reserves to get past that rainy day. And unfortunately, they're deeming who is essential and who's not essential. And unfortunately, I love your approach because I obviously took the same approach. Nobody's getting laid off. Everybody's going to stay as is. And again, you inspire your troops that way. But I want to ask you a question. With respect to what you're seeing on the legal landscape, there's a concept called force majeure. Force majeure, obviously for our audience, is an act of God, something that would excuse your performance under a contract. In the world of force majeure, how likely is it that there truly is an inability to perform versus using that as a bargaining chip for renegotiation?
Randy, that's a great question. And as usual, you hit it right on the mark. I think there's some legitimate force majeure out there, but I think it's very frequently being used as a bargaining chip as well. Hopefully, this is a temporary 60 to 90 day acute problem, but it already appears to be starting to recede. I hope so. Hope to God we're past the peak and we don't get a second wave. But this may be a very, very serious, but hopefully transient in terms of severity. I'm no medical expert. I'm no Dr. Fauci or anything like that. But I'm hopeful that this is something that's starting to recede. It'll probably be with us for a long time, but not at the same level of severity. And I think force majeure really applies when you're in a more acute situation. It may excuse short-term performance, but you're exactly right. Some folks are going to be out there trying to redo deals and trying to get out of deals they wish maybe they never had gotten into before. So it's a two-edged sword for sure, Randy.
Oh, well, let's talk about mindset for a minute, because we just met, but your energy, you have the greatest energy. You're always smiling. I hear great things about you from many people, specifically Randy. How in the world that we're living in today, as we sit here, April 22nd, 2020, how do you keep a positive mindset, and how do you inspire your team and your clients to stay in alignment in that space?
I think it's just how I am wired. I think it's in my DNA to be optimistic. I started my law firm from nothing. I downsized my house. I sold my car. I left a wonderful law firm, the Honigman firm. I loved the firm, great lawyers. After 6 years, I raised $35,000 and built a 42-person law firm against all odds. We took on AIG after the financial crisis of 2008, when the government refused to do it, the SEC refused to do it. People laughed at us, but we won lead counsel in Manhattan and had the #1 securities fraud settlement in the United States, $975 million, when people said it couldn't be done. So when people say the days are dark, I say, well, let's make them light. Let's make lemonade out of lemons. Never give up. And my office, I wish I could turn the camera around, but I have inspiration everywhere. I'm looking at Al Kaline's jersey he wore in Game 7 of the 1968 World Series. I'm looking at a letter George Washington wrote in November of 1776 after we lost the Battle of New York. We hadn't won a single battle, and he's imploring Colonel Hitchcock to raise the regiments, that he must feel the necessity of the measure. So I use that to inspire my people. It's a near mint 1776 letter from George Washington himself saying, raise the regiments. So I believe that every problem can be overcome.
Love it. I love it. Randy, you have a question? I have a question, but you have a question?
I'm formulating multiple questions, but you know, Powell, they say that, you know, I'll say this, you know, tongue in cheek, but with a little bit of humor. In the world of asset protection, which I, you know, have done for over 20 years, I oftentimes joke with clients that litigation has replaced baseball as America's favorite pastime. Do you see this to be true?
You know, I think there's definitely some truth to that. As many people know, baseball is my huge passion. In fact, I'd say the only winner of COVID-19, the only clear winner is the Houston Astros, because you know, all the word about the cheating scandal, you don't hear about that now, and they're not facing the booze from the live games. But litigation is a lot like baseball. You got to be prepared, like Jim Leland said, to give all 9 innings. You got to be prepared to go extra innings, to do whatever it takes. So I think in many ways, litigation is like baseball, no doubt about it.
Except you don't have those 90-degree angles that are perfect symmetry in baseball between the bases.
You couldn't have said that better. It's
Right.
Litigation is, I say it's often like, you know, you're playing cards, but it isn't 52 cards and 1 joker. It might be 45 cards and 6 jokers. You know, there's a lot of uncertainty. And one of the things that I do love about litigation, it's the one profession where you can make a lot of mistakes and still win. I mean, there are thousands of decisions you have to make in a case. No one's ever made every decision right. But you just call the next play, you exercise your best judgment, and you hang in there, you got a great chance to win.
Yeah. Hey, Powell, I'm curious about this. And, you know, I love how you talked about how you talk to your people once this all happened, and the inspiration that you have. I actually just watched on the History Channel a big thing about George Washington and that letter. And so I'd love to see it one day. But when, you know, today I think it's so important to, you know, and it sounds like you're doing this, investing in not only the growth of your business, but in investing in your people. So you invest in collectibles, people, your business. And so can you talk a little bit about that? Because I think it's normal sometimes for when crisis like this happens, for people to say, I got to stop investing in X, Y, and Z. When really, I think it's actually time to almost double down on that type of stuff. And
John, you could not have said it better.
oh,
I had a Zoom call with my whole firm where I rolled out. I said, look, some firms are laying people off. Some people are cutting pay. I say no to both. We're not laying anybody off. We're not cutting anybody's pay. Why? Because I believe in all of you. I believe in our firm. I believe in our business. I believe in what we're doing. And we're going to have much better days ahead. So I am personally investing in all of you. And it's the human talent that's the most powerful part of any business, especially my business. I've been blessed with wonderful people, many of whom have worked with me for 20 years or spent their whole careers with me. It's why anyone who makes partner, and most of my lawyers make partner, I put all their kids through college, all of it, full ride, because I always believe in looking ahead, looking into the future, investing in our people, because I know when you invest in good people, the returns are enormous. And we have a lot more control over what we do than what a stock might do.
yeah,
So I think.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. I think that's so important today. What would you say to the company that's sitting out there and saying, to me, there's an abundant and a fixed mindset, and you have an abundant mindset. And so the fear of fixed mindset doesn't sit in. What would you say to somebody who's listening who is kind of fear, fixed, not abundant? What's a piece of wisdom you would give them to wake up?
I'd say be open-minded, be creative, adapt. I hate paralysis of analysis.
Yeah.
I hate ideas sitting on a shelf. Take a chance. If plan A doesn't work, go to plan B. If plan B doesn't work, go to plan C. Always have a multi-dimensional, diversified approach to your business. We don't just do one type of case. We do all different types of litigation. When one's up, something else is down. There's always going to be somebody out there who needs good lawyers. Good lawyers are always going to be in demand, and that's true of just about every business. You just have to find the opportunity and seize it.
Yeah, love it.
So this is a question Jon and I were formulating. Baseball. What three players would you want to sit in front of now in light of everything that's happening in this current environment? And what do you think they would say to you to push you forward? Something that you may not have thought of, or something that you're not currently doing, or maybe that you draw inspiration from. Who are those three players?
Well, I think Justin Verlander, because he had a horrible injury, his performance went way down, and he worked really, really hard, and he became, again, the best pitcher in baseball. And I remember one of the Tigers' higher level guys told me that when he signed his long-term contract with Detroit, the moment he signed it, he went into the gym to work out. So I'd love to learn more about him and how he coped with seeing his performance drop and overcoming that terrible injury. I wish Ty Cobb would come back to life. I think he got a bum rap in history. I don't think he was the bad guy people made him out to be. And I'd like to hear what he would say about that now. I actually have a wonderful letter from him to a reporter that says, "Please defend me. Here's the photograph of me supposedly spiking Baker at third base. Look at it closely. It was totally a clean play. And by the way, kids, and they count for something, they come to me and they say, 'Ty, you're the guy who spiked Baker. It hurts.' So if he was a bad guy, he wouldn't care about what kids thought. And he also gave a lot of his money to build a hospital and scholarships for children." So I kind of like to hear his perspective, how he would cope with his name being thrown in the mud after he passed. Those two. And I guess maybe part of me would kind of like to ask someone like a Barry Bonds, why? You have all the talent in the world, more than anybody. So why did you have to go, why'd you have to use the steroids? Why? And maybe kind of a hard question to ask, but that puzzles me. It's why you can be successful by doing things the right way. Why do you have to cheat? Why do you have to cheat? And I've always believed that business it's a marathon, not a sprint. If you do the right thing every day, if you take great care of your clients, you may not make the maximum amount of money on any individual case, but over time you'll make a lot more because your clients trust you for doing the right thing on an everyday basis.
Yeah,
Very true.
Yeah. You talk about Barry Bonds, and one of the things that this crisis I think will do, I have two teenagers that have grown up with, I'm hungry, I'll Grubhub. Instant gratification has just been, they don't know from delayed gratification. And this virus has really opened up, I think, for a lot of us, delayed gratification, being present, looking inward, being happy with what we have, being grateful for what we have. And I think there's just as you brought up Barry Bonds, it just makes me think of that today, and so many of those types of lessons that I think a lot of us are going to get from this.
I agree, John. And
Yeah.
I think one of the things about social distancing, in a counterintuitive way, it can make us closer.
Yeah.
Make us closer to our families, closer to our friends, closest to our business associates. So I think that, in this darkness, there really is a lot of light. We just have to pause, reflect, and see it.
Yeah. I do have one question for you you're a businessman, you're a collector, you're a family man. Randy mentioned this as we kicked this off. We wanted to talk about fulfillment. And everybody has their own definition of fulfillment. For me, one of my favorite quotes by Anthony Robbins is success minus fulfillment equals failure. And so to me, I think it's so important to find your voice, find fulfillment. How do you balance, what does fulfillment mean to you when it comes to balancing family, work, businessman, entrepreneur, collector? How do you keep fulfillment in all of those?
What I say to my lawyers is for me, it's actualization of potential. What I said to my 3 girls when they were young is, I only ask of you one thing. Just be the best that you can be, whatever that is. The best sister, the best mom, the best friend, whatever profession you choose, just be the best you can be. I'm more proud of you if you work really, really hard and you got a C- than if you just coasted and you got an A+. It's really actualizing whatever God-given talent and ability you have is, you know, where I get fulfillment is knowing I can look myself in the mirror after every case I tried and know I left nothing on the table. I gave it everything I had.
Yeah.
And because I would hate myself if I lost, and I could go back and think, well, I could have worked harder. I could have done this as well. I could have done more of that. Where I get fulfillment is knowing I gave it everything I got.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. I never like to look back with regret, because that can just, it just doesn't feel good. So I love that message. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Sure.
Randy?
You know, it's you know, similar to last week, Jonathan, you know, with Bob, we have another professor here with us.
Yeah.
And, you know, drawing from Powell's experiences, you know, aside from, you know, him just being a spectacular lawyer, he's, you know, he's an even better human being. And, you know, he's a real testament to, you know, the old adage that success only comes before work in the dictionary. And you've certainly put in the work, Powell. You've taken the stairs, and some people might look at you and say, wow, I want to be him. I want to be where he is. But, you know, you got to look back and look at every chapter you developed and wrote and rewrote. So, you know, thank you for being authentic you, and, you know, really for being on the show. This is something me and Jonathan kicked off a few weeks ago as a sort of, you know, quarantine time, but we're having a lot of fun with it.
Yeah.
We're having a lot of fun with it.
This is great. It's been a lot of fun to be able to talk with you guys and learn from you, and, you know, keep doing this. It's going to be a great benefit to all your viewership, you know. So I'm honored to have been one of your guests. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much. Yeah, thanks, Bob. Wait, I just want to share one thing, because Randy, you said something that made me think of it. And and when I was in real estate, they always used to tell this story that Picasso, have you heard the story? Picasso's sitting at a coffee shop with this woman, and she says, oh my God, my daughter loves your work. Can you just kind of draw something on the back of this napkin? And he says, sure. So he takes the napkin, he draws a little, you know, something, takes him, you know, 3 minutes. And and so she goes to grab the napkin, and Picasso says, what are you doing? He says, she said, I was just taking it for my daughter. He said, no, you have to pay for that. And she said, well, how much is it? And he said, $60,000. And Picasso says, $60,000. She says, $60,000. It took you 3 minutes. He said, no, it took me 60 years. And so that reminds me, just as we talk about instant versus delayed gratification, a lot of the things that you know, your collections and how you have just, you know, taken it step by step with no shortcuts, Powell, is really inspiring to me, and I know to Randy. So thanks for sharing your stories today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Powell.
Thank you, Powell. Thanks, Randy.
Thank you, Jonathan.